Hey there, thanks so much for joining me. I am too excited to be introducing you to a very good friend of mine, Shelby Larson. Hey Shelby, how are you?
Hi, I'm so grateful to be here. I'm so excited. Thank you for having me.
Oh, my pleasure, my pleasure. Shelby and I met a while back, and I knew that we needed to connect, and I just knew that we needed to share her story with all of the 11s. Now, what you need to know about Shelby is that she is an 11, so she gets 11, right? Yeah. So Shelby's the founder of Nevertheless organization. She, as I said, is an 11. She's got quite a remarkable story. I'm going to kind of turn it over to you, Shelby, because I want our audience to know that next week in the Master Number 11 membership, we're going to be doing a presentation where you're going to be presenting your program to the 11s. Okay.
Yeah.
And this is for the members of the Master Number 11 membership. You can go to www.masternumber11.com to join. It's $11. You can join for one session and then cancel. It's fine. It's no problem. But we would love to be there or to have you there with us. So why don't you tell us, Shelby, a little bit about your new program and how this is going to benefit our Master Number 11s.
Yeah, I'm so excited. And actually, your group of Master Number 11s will be the first people that actually get the presentation on it. It's been coming together over the last couple of years, and you're the first person to have me presented. I'm very excited.
Yay.
So it's interesting, like many things in life, nevertheless has been one of the greatest blessings of my life, and it stemmed from the ashes of a very painful situation. So in January of 2018, my brother-in-law actually took his own life, which was tragic. I know that you've experienced something similar in your
Yeah.
life. And since this has happened, it's been one of those things where people come out of the woodwork and they tell you, oh, I was out of my mind, floored with the amount of people that have been touched by this particular hardship. And when we were preparing for the funeral, my husband was to do the eulogy, and so we were preparing that together. And I came across his old missionary scriptures, and he wasn't very actively religious at the point that he passed away, but he was a good portion of his life. And on the side of his scriptures, I can give you a picture of this too. It said "nevertheless," like written across the squished pages, and I thought that's a weird word. I've never even thought of that word. Like, why would he write that in such a prominent place? And I kept finding it, underlined in different places. And so I decided to look into it. And I'm very a unique blend of traditionally religious and spiritual. And I found that it was in the Bible over 100 times. And in almost every instance, it was, yeah, over 100 times. And it was almost always this hard, terrible circumstance, nevertheless, this beautiful, hopeful thing. So it became this interesting word for me that year. It just kept coming up, and as I was in a position in my church at the time where I was working with a lot of people in hardship, and I kept using this to help them, have a pivotal change in their circumstance. And at the end of the year, it was so interesting. So I have to back up and tell you for this to make any sense, but that year was so rough. So my youngest daughter had a 4-chamber cyst in her breast that they thought was cancerous. It was not. And then our brother took his life. And then my daughter was diagnosed 2 months later with the same, some of the similar diseases that he had. And was the first on the scene when someone had been killed in a car accident. They ended up coming back to life later. It was just a really rough year. And my husband had lung surgery. So at the end of the year on New Year's Eve, I turned to my husband and I said, man, don't we have such a blessed life? Isn't everything just so wonderful? And he literally was like, are you not thinking about this year? Like, this is so great. And I thought, why do I feel that way? Right? Like, this has been a really awful year. Like, why do I feel like this? And that's when I started to evaluate. The only thing that was different is I started to have a nevertheless mindset in January, and it changed the entire trajectory, not of whether hard or difficult things happened, but how much joy and peace and comfort I felt. And that's when I started saying, this word might mean something different. It might be methodology. And that's when I started looking into cognitive reframing, which is a real thing. I kind of thought it was a floofy term that didn't mean anything. It's got real neuroscience behind it. And over time, we ended up developing a methodology that's based on the neuroscience of happiness that is designed in a way to help change how you think and the way that the neurons in your brain process things so that you can experience more joy while going through difficult trials.
And so right now with with all that's going on with the world, with the coronavirus and pandemic and the fear and everything else, the 11s
All
are
scary.
so plugged in. I mean, I'm not an 11. I mean, I have 11 growth number, but my life path number is not an 11. But I'm feeling that anxiety, right? And
Yeah.
we're all kind of, with all this, when we went through this before, we went through it with SARS there several years ago, but we didn't have social media back then. So the
No,
impact of what we were
it was
going through
different.
was way different. But now all of us are wired and plugged in and listening to it, and it's just inundating us. So I believe that what we're trying to do next week, when we do our actual program next week, is to be able to give the 11s some tools with which to maybe
Mhm.
reconsider how they're thinking.
For
And
sure. For sure. Something you said that's interesting is everybody is dialed into the coronavirus right now. Everybody. But
right,
when you're an 11, you're always sort of tuned into everything all the time.
right,
And, and you're the specialist, not me, but it seems to me like 11s have a more challenging time than other people at remaining grounded and not
yes,
sort of losing themselves to everything
yeah,
and kind of being all over the place.
yeah,
And I have found this methodology to be an amazing tool to cut through the noise and just be centered and grounded.
yeah,
This thing is happening. This thing is happening. Nevertheless, this is who I am. This is what I'm doing. This is where I'm going. And
right,
constantly bringing all the noise to here
yeah,
so that we are grounded in it. And that's what I really am excited to talk about next week with the 11s is like, you're my people. Like, I
yeah.
understand how this feels. And this tool that
You're
we've
talking to us,
designed
God.
to help, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. This
yeah,
tool that we've designed to help people create a new relationship with pain and transcend pain had this amazing side benefit of being very grounded during very challenging times. And so that I think is going to be a really valuable piece to talk about.
yeah. It is, and I feel that right now more than ever, and I always drill this into the 11s, is to remind you constantly that 11s have a tendency, because of their old soul contracts, they have a tendency to project into the future all the time, and that creates anxiety. But don't we have enough anxiety right now with what we do know? You know what I mean? So
Yep.
it's anything we can do to create more presence,
Yep.
to be more present, to be more in the moment, to be more in our tuned into our bodies and what we actually feel rather than what we're thinking, and learning how to not react in negative ways, right?
And not have the rumination all the time, the
That's right.
rumination. And this
Yeah.
process, this nevertheless process really cuts down on that rumination because you get so clear. It's almost like your brain says, okay, you got it. So I don't need to constantly spin on it because you got it.
Right.
And I tell people all the time, so a public speaker, how when you go to a speaker and they're on stage and you're just resonating with what they have to say and you identify, man, what that speaker is talking about, that's what I need. I'm so excited. And
Yes.
then you get home and you have absolutely no idea how to apply it to yourself.
Yeah.
And so it's such a letdown because you can see what you need, but you don't know how to apply it. And so this methodology is just designed in a way to take everything that neuroscience is teaching you about happiness anyway and apply it consistently until it becomes your own habit.
Right.
So,
So that everybody understands, what Shelby has created um, is a journal that is a process that you'll be using over a 90-day period. Now, not everybody's necessarily going to want to get involved in the 90-day process. I understand that. However, just the tools that she shared with me today and that she'll be sharing with you next week are so freaking valuable on
yes.
how to bring this to this, okay, to make it
Yeah.
manageable. So she's going to be teaching you basically how to journal effectively with some really, really good tools. And that's what she's referring to when she talks about methodology, right?
Yeah. And so that's what I'm really excited to talk to the group about because you can use the journaling process, which is a way to incorporate every day. But
Yes.
what we've been finding is, without having released any journals yet, is when people understand the 4-part process of the methodology,
Yeah.
people find all kinds of interesting ways to incorporate that into their lives.
Yes.
People have been sending me notes like, I can't believe I've been walking through this methodology when I had this thing happen or that happen. Like, once you understand the 4 components, you will find yourself, especially in 11s are very tuned in to what they need. You will find yourself integrating it in ways that work for you.
Right. Right. I love it. I think it's really, really exciting. I mean, you just shared a little bit of it prior to us getting on the commercial. And I'm pretty excited. I also want to make sure everybody knows the ones who attend the event next week have a chance to win a 1-hour integration session with Shelby herself. So she's going to be leading you through the process of how to apply and how to personally adopt all the tools that she's going to be showing us next week. So that is pretty exciting. That session is a personal one-on-one session with her. It's valued at $147, and you stand a very good chance of winning it. So I also want to point out that if you want to learn a little bit more about the Nevertheless organization, you're going to go to neverthelessnarrators.com, and that's going to lead you right to a Facebook group where you'll be able to communicate with other people, like-minded people who are looking to really improve their lives, to be able to understand the benefits that come from this whole journaling process. So I'll post all that information up on the screen too, so they'll know how to do that. But I'm really excited. So our event is going to be next Sunday. That is Sunday, March 22nd, 2020. And it is going to be held at 7 p.m. Eastern time. It'll be done over Zoom. You need to be a member of the membership. I'll show you how to sign up for that here in a sec on the screen. And anything else you need to know, you're welcome to reach out to me. Post a message down below if you need to, or send me a message directly to Ann@AnnPerryNumerologist.com. Thanks, Shelby. Anything else you want to add before we go?
No, I'm so excited. I can't wait.
Yeah, me too.
I think you guys are going to find this really powerful. I can honestly say that it's changing people's lives just to understand how to incorporate cognitive reframing in a way that has your brain start processing things different. And 11's especially could really benefit from that.
Well, I'm really excited because these guys are the first ones to be really exposed to this whole program. So you know what? It's leading edge stuff, and I know Shelby and her team have been working really hard along with neuroscientists that are really helping to really connect the dots between how our brains work, you know, and we see this in numerology charts all the time. You know, the programming that we have. You know, for example, those with an influence of the number 6 in their chart. I think Shelby, you and I both have the 6 in our charts that say, you know, we've always got to do the right thing. You know, we've always got to be on our game with perfectionism and all that crap. You know, so it's how do we unplug that? How do we rewire that into something more productive? So I'm super excited. I'm so grateful that you'll be with us next week. So
of course, see you guys next week.
All right, take care, guys. Bye for now.